Hello again, and warm welcome to yet another reading of Bob Proctor's book, You Were Born Rich, which is a book that really, truly inspired me. But before we get started, just in case you're new to this series, and I've been reading this for a while now, my name is Jörg Hartmann. I'm a Proctor Gallagher Institute consultant, and it is my pleasure and my absolute passion here to bring this information to you. This information has transformed my life when I was still in aviation and was made redundant, and helped me to find my feet and to develop a completely new strategy for my life, which is now actually in full swing. So here I am talking to you about Bob Proctor and his book. He wrote this book in 1984 as an accumulation of his life work and study. He's been studying the great minds of success development for, at that time, it must have been at least 50 plus years. And that started with Andrew Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, and of course, all the other great men and women that have followed through there, and who Bob himself studied intensely. Of course, Earl Nightingale, being his mentor at the time, inspired him dramatically as well. So this book is an accumulation of his understanding and his knowledge. And when I read this book, I couldn't put it down. And in fact, I'm rereading it now because I find it is a very powerful and potent book, and it really summarizes extremely well this kind of approach to how success is built, how you can shape and create your own reality, and how your life can completely transform itself when you understand how the mind works. 1984 is quite a while ago. Some of the language is a little bit more inspired by the past, and some of the ideas and some of the numbers may not be absolutely congruent with current times. However, that said, the principles will stand forever as long as humanity exists in its current form, because these are principles or laws of nature, of the universe. These are natural laws that will always be there, just like the law of gravity is there. So that said, we're in chapter 4, and I've read the first half of it, and I've left very little left of that chapter, but I only want to read half a chapter. So I'm going to go into a short summary and a revision of the last two the first 3 chapters that we've been reading, and just to highlight what it's all about. This book, and if you want a copy of this book, you just give me a quick email or direct message me on any of my Instagram or social media channels, and I'll be very happy to send you a free copy. It is a free book, and it's available, and I'll be glad to send it to you. So the book really is broken down into 10 chapters, and it starts off with understanding more that there is huge varieties in the way men and women think about money. And some of these ideas that people have been carrying around, which they've been programmed with, are really counterproductive to developing the prosperity and the wealth that people want. Now, in the first chapter, Bob really breaks it down and shows us how money must circulate, how money should not be just hoarded and stored, like the story of Mr. Chapman, who died in poverty but had boxes and boxes full of money stashed away in his house. Now, that doesn't help anyone. That is not how money was designed to be. He brings the idea to us that money is really something that we get in exchange for service that we give. And we want to make sure that money is seen as a tool, as a servant, as a friend, but not to be used in the sense of a primary motive. We want to do good to people. We want to share, we're going to give value, but we will get money back in return. And of course, it is always as much value as you provide. That is exactly what you're going to get back. So we talk about the money as a general concept in chapter 1. Then we really break it down in chapter 2, where we start looking at numbers. And when I say numbers, I mean it's important for the mind to grasp where you stand. You've got to take a snapshot of where you are. And then when you understand where your expenses lie, what your income is, then you can start creating a way of restructuring that and building an image of exactly what you want, what kind of a lifestyle you want, and what that lifestyle would then subsequently cost you. So we're looking for a number here, a number in chapter 2 that will represent the lifestyle we want to live. And just be clear that when we're talking about wealth here, wealth can have many shapes and forms, but we're looking at the idea of money in this book. And so in this context, once we get an idea of the number, we have a clear idea of what we can give to the subconscious mind in order to go and work for us. Because the subconscious really is the executing agent for us, and it really does everything that we want it to do if it knows what to do. In fact, we are programmed in such a way that we're just following our previous conditioning. And now what we're trying to do is we are trying to take over and create new conditioning that's in line with what we really want from our lives. So that's what chapter 2 is about. We create a plan on how to restructure debt if we have any. And we get the idea that actually we need to pay ourselves first. And how we can get to financial independence is by some of the concepts there. Pay yourself first, have a debt restructuring account, have a clear idea of what your expenses are. And when you do, then you can just put all your payments and all your financial life on autopilot and concentrate on having beautiful ideas in order to get to that goal that you've now decided you want to go after. Once you get that idea, we turn that over into chapter 3, into something like what we call the image maker is all about getting the picture of what you truly want. So now we're trying to create a lifestyle, and we're generating images because the mind, in fact, works on images. It doesn't so much work with words, it needs images. Just as you will know that when you think of something that you know, be it your laptop, your cell phone, your car, your fridge, your front door, you will immediately have an image come to your mind. And so we also need an image of what we want. We've created an idea of what we wanted in chapter 2. We defined a lifestyle, we put a number on what it costs, and now we're creating the images that are going with that. Because without image, there cannot be any physical reality. And this is one of the key concepts, that everything is created twice. It's created in your mind, and then it is created in what we call 3D reality, in our physical reality. But it has to originate in some person's mind first, because otherwise it cannot come about. So this is the starting point. We have an idea, we've got an image, and now what do we do with that image? We need to make this image become something that we concentrate on a lot, and we become very persistent. John teaches us a little bit more about persistence. Bob teaches about persistence in the story of John Cannery. He wanted to do what Bob did, and he followed Bob around for years and eventually became very successful in doing what Bob Proctor did. And so building an image is crucially important. We also learn from Paul Hutzey's story, the insurance agent, that with the right images in your mind, you can take your insurance company on a completely different scale in the ranking. So he went from being 175 in his company's ranking, and that's the Prudential. It's a huge insurance company with hundreds of offices all over the United States. And he was a ranking 175, and by creating the correct image, he managed to take his office, his branch, to number 2 in the company. That's how powerful these ideas are, just basically understanding how the mind works and how this goal-seeking mechanism of ours, our subconscious, needs to be given the right information in order to know where it's supposed to go. And once you let it go with that, it really starts to go. Now, so we've got the idea now that we've got the image. Now we need to know that in chapter 4, we're beginning to get the idea of where does the energy come from that fuels the images, right? It's not just, oxygen going into our bodies and feeding our muscles, our brain. There's a lot more to it. In fact, thought is connected to this universal energy around us. So thoughts are created through this energy. We call it anything you like. You can call it universal energy. Bob refers to it as God for simplicity. I also like the word spirit that he uses. It doesn't matter. It has to be clear. This has nothing to do with any religion. This has to do with an idea, a concept of how the energy is derived from which we actually create thoughts. And these thoughts then become ideas. Those ideas create those images. So we learn a little bit about faith and how faith is an important part of how these images then transform into physical reality, because you have to develop an attitude of expectancy, and that only comes from building faith. And faith is built through the idea that you really study and understand. Once you truly understand how you function, how the universe has incorporated you into its magic, then you will understand that you're just one part of energy that is just constantly being in transmutation. And so your thoughts are just being transmuted into physical reality. And faith is what develops when you start to really understand the concepts. And that is a very difficult thing for most people to grasp. Myself, I'm still working on having a continuous based faith in the ideas, because it's something that really needs to become a continuous companion for you to really get 100% results from this idea of thinking, seeing, and developing that into physical reality. So faith is the greatest power. Many men and women have written about it. We learn about the story from David and Goliath. It's actually a biblical story, but it's very powerful. How little David took down this huge fighter, Goliath, and just with nothing but a slingshot and a pebble. And that was all based on his faith, the understanding that he could take this person down no matter what. That was a very powerful story, and it is worth going back into it to read it. And then we learn also that there is a way forward to enhance faith. Bob gives us an example, and this is where we dive back in to this chapter, into the reading, where I'm going to continue reading the story now that Bob takes us into. So I'll just go one little step back just to reconnect better, and I will just continue reading here. Bob says, as we have already said, God, being a just God, will always work to bring out your ultimate good. But always bear in mind, it is your innermost thoughts and images that you're requesting, not the words to which you might only be paying lip service. Therefore, make it a habit to begin and end each day with a declaration of faith in yourself, created in God's image, and in His power, whatever you choose to call it. Guard this faith zealously, as you would your innermost precious possessions, and ensure that it never be imperiled by weak, downhearted, and negative thoughts. Because doubt, fears, pessimism, and negative thinking poison the very source of life. They sap energy, enthusiasm, ambition, hope, faith, and everything else which makes life purposeful, joyful, and creative. You must consciously entertain only the mental allies of your ambition, and those attributes which will help you realize the manifestation of your goal. For when you are firmly grounded in faith, negative thoughts will have no power over you, because they will not be in harmonious vibration with your new image. You'll be mentally strong through the conscious awareness of God's power within you. So this is where we reconnect. When times get tough. When things get tough, you must get tougher, and you can. As Dr. Robert Schuller says, tough times never last, but tough people do. So if you find your faith slipping, or you find yourself running low on this great motor power which accompanies so many wonderful things, you can do something about it. The following exercise works for me, and this is Bob, and it has for years, and I know it will work for you too. You can build huge reservoirs of mental power by simply employing a daily autosuggestive technique. For the acquisition and the strengthening of this greatest and most necessary of all human attributes, faith. Note that when you're giving yourself this mental treatment, you should always go off by yourself and speak out loud to yourself in a firm and decided tone of voice. Verbalize what you are saying just as earnestly as if you were speaking to someone else whom you wish to impress with the great importance of what you were asserting. When you speak to yourself, begin with your own name and continue as follows. So he goes to say, your name, you call yourself by your name, in my case, Jörg, you are a child of God. And the being God made was never intended for the sort of weak, negative life that you are leading. God made you for success, not failure. God never made anyone to be a failure. You are perverting the great object of your existence by giving way to these miserable doubts of yourself, to your ability to be what you desire with all your heart to be. You should be ashamed to go out amongst your associates with a long, sad, dejected face, as though you were a misfit, as though you lacked creative power within, as though you did not have the ability to do what your Creator sent you here to do. You were made to express what you long to express. Why not do this? Why not stand and walk like a conqueror, like a David who slew Goliath, instead of giving way to discouragement and doubt and carrying on like a failure? The image of perfection, the image of your Creator, lies within you. You must bring it to the center of your conscious thought and express it to the world. Don't disgrace your Maker by violating that image, by being everything but the magnificent success that God intended you to be. This is the end of that affirmation. There's a tremendous achievement force, an upbuilding and strengthening power in the asserting of confidence in the Creator and that you are created in His image. This is not egotism nor the glorification or of the parody of the man or woman which wrong thinking or wrong living has made. It is simply the assertion of your kinship with God, the higher power. Do not force it to happen. There should be no force associated with the manifestation of your image because force negates. Trying to do it your way by forcing things to happen is not necessarily God's way. Therefore, learn to follow the quiet voice within that speaks in feelings rather than words. Follow what you hear inside rather than what others may be telling you to do. Be aware that the quiet voice within often tells you to do things which run counter to the way most people live their lives. But do not be unduly concerned by this. Many of the world's greatest leaders were considered heretics by their peers, simply because they choose to march to the tune of a different drummer. These individuals were following the quiet voice within them, rather than doing the things considered fashionable in their day. Let your image sink deep into the treasury of your subconscious mind. Let yourself get totally and emotionally involved with your image, because by doing this, you're letting go and letting God, which is the name of this chapter. Understand, moreover, that if you should falter for any reason and go your own way, the minute you recognize your error and reaffirm your image, Spirit will pick up right where it left off when you choose to take over the controls. Then you will instantaneously be back in the right vibration and on the correct pathway leading to success in life. Follow the instructions below, to the letter. First principle, relax and see yourself already in possession of the good that you require. Second principle, let go and let God. Now that is a powerful story that Bob shares with us. The idea that it is truly important that we need to develop affirmations. We need to have a dialogue with ourselves. Do you know how many times a day you are talking to yourself? You do that all day long, actually. Most of us are not really aware of it when we do that, but we do. We're constantly talking to ourselves. And most of the time, unfortunately, it's not positive talk. It's criticism. It is some form of doubts. It is some form of negative thinking. And we tend to be rather critical with ourselves. And I myself have experienced that a lot in my past. And so the first thing we must do is we must understand that having a dialogue with yourself starts to tip the balance away from the negative and more into the positive, where you then start to tell yourself what it is that you truly want. You do that by causing the image. We learned that in chapter 3 with the image maker. And then we're now telling ourselves verbally what it is that we want from us, our person, our character, our personality, our image. What it is that we want us to behave like, what it is that we want to achieve. We tell ourselves what we believe is our purpose in life so that we can aspire to a higher setting, increase our vibration, and thereby instantly connect more closely to that what we truly desire. It's the way the whole law of attraction really works. The law of attraction is really about raising your frequency, raising your vibration, because everything in us vibrates. This is a very simple physical law. And by raising vibration, we raise our feeling. And the feeling helps dramatically for us to get onto the right frequency of that what we want. And once we get in line with a higher frequency, we start to move out of this paradigm. We move out of our comfort zone and we start to shift our awareness. That's really why we're doing all this, because we want to learn, we want to improve, we want to develop a better understanding of our mind so that we can truly get elevated in our lives and we can truly improve our results, we can improve our finances. In this case, we can improve our income, our relationships, our happiness, our health. Everything improves when we improve the way we become aware of how we function, how we interact with the world, how energy flows. So auto-suggesting something to yourself that is meaningful to you. And I'm not saying that Bob's script is entirely the only script that you can do. On the contrary, I would say everybody makes their own script. But that's a good starting point. You can take a script like that from the book, talk to yourself with that, and see how that feels to you. And if you don't feel that that resonates entirely with you, you replace some parts and you put something else in it. As long as what you're putting in has to be bigger and better and has to represent a higher version of you. Once you do that, there will be changes. Now, I can give you some personal tips on that to make that more effective. I like doing this kind of talk to myself in the mirror because I feel that that's more effective. You're talking while you're looking at yourself, and that seems to increase the power of what goes into your subconscious mind. The other idea here is that once you've set these ideas and you put these ideas in your mind, you can't obviously run around all day long thinking of these things because we're also doing mundane daily tasks. So once you put these ideas into your head, what you do, you also carry on with your day. But you will notice the more often you do that, your day becomes more and more inspired in your actions with the thoughts that you're putting in. And that means your behavior will eventually change. And that's what we're trying to come across here, is that that's exactly how results are developed. You create the image, you repeat that image over and over to yourself until you truly believe it. And in the next chapter, in chapter 5, which is called Expectant Abundance, we are going to look deeper into how this transformation really takes place and what are the key components that are needed in order to make this happen. So this, my friends, is chapter 4 from You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor, written in 1984, an amazing book. So if you have any comments, if you have any ideas, questions that you want to bring up, please post them in the comments. I'll be happy to address them either this time or next time. Be aware, I can't see who you are because unfortunately this streaming software doesn't allow that, but I can read your comments. Once again, I offer a free download if you'd like to have a copy of the book. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you again soon. I'll see you probably on Tuesday, because I like to make these transmissions on Fridays and Tuesdays, and I look forward to seeing you then. So have a wonderful weekend in the meantime, and I see you on Tuesday. Take care now.